Welcome back, everyone. I hope these videos are helping you to write some code. And of course, this is not the only way that you need to write the code. Everybody has their own style. I'm showing you my style and my preferences. And so you're going to develop your own as you get a little bit more and more experience. So let's dig a little bit deeper and see if we can clean up this code anywhere. So again, I want to talk about the importance of putting this on top. So again, using namespace standard, that's kind of your call as to whether or not you use it. I don't normally use it, but there are times it makes a lot of sense to avoid having a whole bunch of these things up top. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to get rid of this C out here and the C out there. I usually put them in strictly to error check in case I do a function and I want to make sure what the function is returning is what I'm actually looking. So I want to put this here, and we're going to clean up main a bit. And we have the area equals, so let's put that on the same line, and then we'll do another break over here. So what I like to do is I like to separate all the input and the output from the output. But we have a kind of an issue here. The arrow is here. So we're still doing more in main than we really need to. Now, again, this is my personal preference. So I'm going to write a function that's going to print all the rectangle. So it's going to be a void since we're not returning anything. And we'll just call it display rectangle for no other purpose. So what we need to put here is a couple of integers. So we're going to do the length, we're going to do the width, and then we're going to do the area. So we're going to pass all three of those. And let's make our function definition. And so we want length. And we want width. And remember to take note that you can call this whatever you want. You can call it elephant. Doesn't have to be length. Doesn't matter. But you want to have names that are descriptive. And area. So we're going to, and we get this calc area again, I'm trying to figure out where all these things are coming. So let's go. It must have something to do with the way I'm having the code written. So let's move that there. And we're going to do C out the area of a rectangle with a width of width. And here's something that you may or may not know. You can break up a long cout statement into separate lines without affecting anything. And we'll do, and I probably should have done length first because we're talking about length and width. So let's change this to length and change this to length and a width of width is and we have our area, and we'll do an MI. So now we want a couple of things because we don't want it to print all on the same line. So we have talked about the advantages of using /n and the disadvantages of using /n. And for our purposes, I'm going to use nline. You could actually use character 10. But we're not going to do that right now. So let's go and put our end lines here. and our end line here. And let's see, I must have too many of them. There we go. That way. So now what we're going to do here in main, we are going to call the function here. And we just go display rectangle. We're going to pass the length, the width, and the area. And then what we're going to do here is comment this out. Of course, we don't need it anymore. So now we've taken main, and it's basically nothing. It's just 4 lines in there, when before it was a whole bunch of lines. So let's go and run this and see if it works. We'll use 10 and 15. So let's go, what is the width? So let's do 10. And what is the length? 15. And we're doing, I guess I didn't comment these out here. So, okay, so that's actually where you're inputting it in here. So the width of the rectangle, length of 15, and a width of 10 is 150. So we have some cosmetic issues in here. So first thing is we want to put a space in there. So what I do before I end the program, I'll go down here and go back, and I can look at my function in here and make the modifications that I need to. And we need a space here. Oops. And it looks like we have some extra C outs. What is the width of the rectangle? So we're probably printing it. So let's go to get integer, C out, C out. Okay, so we're printing those. I don't think we need to do that anymore. So we can get rid of that, get rid of some spaces. So let's try and see if we can clean this up cosmetic-wise. So we're going to do 10 and 15, and the area of 15 and the width of 10 is 50. So it looks like we have a couple extra spaces, and we can probably just make some more cosmetic. I'm going to put this on my other screen so I can go back in and do them at the same time. And let's see. Rectangle. And I think I'm going to get rid of this here. And just leave it at that. You know, you can all put it on the same line if you want. You know, that's cosmetic, and that's totally up to you. Then we want to do display rectangle. So we have a kind of dilemma here. And the dilemma is we're having to pass all of these variables here when we really don't have to. Now, I know we haven't covered something called structures, but I'm going to give it to you anyway, just so you can see what how useful they really are. It's a way of grouping things together, items together. That was my phone going off. And let's go and create a structure. Now that has to be in outside of main in order for you to use it in all the different functions in here. Otherwise, you'll only be able to use it in main. So we start off with the keyword struct. Now, I know this hasn't been covered yet, but that's okay. So we're going to call this structure rectangle. Now, one of the things you should always do is when something is user defined, it's always a good idea to capitalize it, so know that you actually defined it yourself. So then what we're going to do here is we're going to do integer length, and it's really don't need to initialize it, but if you want to, this is fine. And we'll do integer width. I don't normally initialize them in structure because they're useless without doing anything. And then we'll do area. So there's, as you learn in classes, you have a default constructor that you can modify. You can actually do the same thing inside a structure where you can initialize the length and the width and the area to 0. So let's just leave this here for now. And then what we're going to do here is we're going to create just one variable. And here are the items that we would need to put in. And I'll only do one because you get the message. So what we're going to do here is we're going to create a rectangle. So notice that's actually a data type. And I'll just call it, this is my preference of doing things. I like to have it start with an S because it's a structure. Like I do with vectors, I like to start with a V. So that helps me to remember this is structure. And then I use the same name as the structure itself. So now there's a whole bunch of different ways that we can do this. So let's just make it simple. And instead of doing width in here, let's just do S. Let me get space in here. So I'm going to do S rectangle. And look what happens when I hit the dot. Nothing, because I spelled it wrong. So let's try it again. I'm going to hit the dot. And notice that we have width, area, length in here. So bear in mind, though, this is in alphabetical order. So I have length, width, area, but it actually is area, length, and width. So then I'm going to do width here. And that's going to be get integer. Then I'm going to do the same thing. Instead of length, I'm going to do S rectangle dot length. And then instead of area, I'm going to do S rectangle dot area. So now what we need is a way to print all this stuff without having to pass length and width and area. Yes, we could pass S rectangle dot width, S rectangle dot length, X rectangle, but there's a much easier way. So let's create an overloaded function here. And we're going to call it void and display rectangle. But what we're going to do here is we're going to pass a rectangle. Now we're going to get an error when I do this. So I want to make you aware of why we're going to get it. So rectangle. And so we're going to go over here. We should get a red line. And we're actually not. There we go. Well, here is the issue is because we are not passing the rectangle. So let's put in rectangle here. And we should get a nasty red line. And we are. The reason being is it looks up and it doesn't see any definition of structure rectangle. So what we need to do is take this structure here and put it above. And that should solve the problem. So now what I'm going to do here is let's create our function. This time I'm going to choose it here, and hopefully it doesn't. See, we have the display rectangle, and I don't know why it's doing this. This is the first time it's doing it where it's taking it here. Anyway, not going to worry about it. And so here we are, and we'll just call this S structure or S rectangle or whatever you want to call it. I'll just make it S rec. Let's type it. So now what we're going to do here is we're going to take the code and make just simple modification. So obviously we don't have a length and a width. So what we need to do here is I'm just going to copy this and put a dot and do the same thing here. Just save me a little bit of typing. And then the same thing here. And now let's go and see if this actually works. And I think what I'm going to do here is leave it the way it is. So I don't want to break up and worry. So now what we need to do here is instead of calling it here with display rectangle here. Now, the reason why I'm not getting any errors here is because we still have these defined. So we would get 0, 0, 0 in here. So let's go and do display rectangle. And let's pass it with nothing more than S rectangle. And we'll comment this out. And let's see if we get the exact same result. Then if it works, we won't need this anymore. So let's go and run it and see what happens. Now I'm doing this on the fly, so expect errors, but so far nothing. So the width is going to be 10, the length is going to be 15, and it gives us the same information just with the extra space in here. So we're good here. So now what I'm going to do is delete all this since we don't need it. And I'm going to delete this here. And let's see. Calc area. So now let's do calc area, because look what's happening. We're having an issue in here. So that's a very simple fix in here. Now we could pass let's just show you what I'm talking about. We could pass this. We could do that, but why pass all this stuff if we really don't need to? So let's go and create another calc area. And this time, we're just going to pass a structure. So we're going to pass rectangle. Then I'm going to create the function itself. And I'm not going to keep changing this calc area. It's getting on my nerves, but I'm not going to do anything. So let's just do srec. And we did area equals length times width, return. So let's just do it a little bit differently. Let's do it with in a return. So we're going to return s.rec.length times, notice the parenthesis I'm putting in there, dot width. And let's run it again and see if we get the same results. So we have to go to main, display rectangle. So let's comment this out. And let's do S rectangle dot area equals calc area. And notice that it gives you your information in here. So you know exactly what is needed in here. It's a rectangle, so we're going to do S rectangle. And we're good to go. And let's go and run the program and see how we work. And there's errors. All right. So we have to string width. Okay. So that makes sense in here. So what we need to do is change this to S rectangle dot width. And of course, if I spelled it right, that would help. So let's see if this got rid of it, and we have the same thing here. So let's run this again. And what is area of the rectangle? So let's just do our 10 and 5, or what is width? The length is 15. And the area is 150. So we got the same results passing it. So now we can get rid of some more stuff. Let's get rid of this here. And let's go and separate. So I have our input here. We're only getting 2 input. Then I have our calculations. Then I have our display. So we have 3 separate areas in the main. Actually, we have a 4th one if you want to call it declarations. Now, I do not like when items are declared outside of the initial top over here. I don't think it's a very good idea to do, but it does work. C++ compiler doesn't care, but I care. You should always try to keep all of your declarations up top in here. So we can talk about that in another video. So that is it for this one here. I wanted to keep it to less than 20 minutes, but unfortunately that has not happened. So on our next video, we will go maybe do a few more tricks in here to help improve the code. So we have a string get integer, but what happens if we want to do something where we have a rectangle, but we need to make it between, say, 10 and 20. We don't want to in here. So right now, we're not passing anything to stop it from the highest. So you could have a rectangle with 8 gazillion as the width, and the computer's not going to care, it's not going to fit in an integer, but that's okay. So that's it for this video. Hopefully it's helpful. Please always leave a comment, good, bad, indifferent. I really value your comments in here. I haven't seen a whole lot of them, but please leave a comment. Leave a like if you like the video, if it's helpful in there. Put comments and say maybe, can you make a video on this or a video on that? And I'd be more than happy to do that. So that's it for here. Have a wonderful, wonderful day and see you next time.